Here's a reading from The Voice of the Silence by H.P. Blavatsky before we get started with the talk. Before the mystic power can make of thee a god, Lanu, thou must have gained the faculty to slay thy lunar form at will. The self of matter and the self of spirit can never meet. One of the twain must disappear. There is no place for both. Ere thy soul's mind can understand, the bud of personality must be crushed out. The worm of sense destroyed past resurrection. Thou canst not travel on the path before thou hast become that path itself. Let thy soul lend its ear to every cry of pain, like as the lotus bares its heart to drink the morning sun. Let not the fierce sun dry one tear of pain before thyself hast wiped it from the sufferer's eye. But let each burning human tear drop on thy heart, and there remain, nor ever brush it off until the pain that caused it is removed. These tears, O thou of heart most merciful, these are the streams that irrigate the fields of charity immortal. 'Tis on such soil that grows the midnight blossom of Buddha, more difficult to find, more rare to view, than is the flower of the Voge tree. It is the seed of freedom from rebirth. It isolates the Arhat both from strife and lust. It leads him through the fields of being unto the peace and bliss known only in the land of silence and non-being. Kill out desire, but if thou killest it, take heed lest from the dead it should again rise. Kill love of life, but if thou slayest Tanha, let this not be for thirst of life eternal, but to replace the fleeting by the everlasting. Desire nothing, chafe not at karma, nor at nature's changeless laws, but struggle only with the personal, the transitory, the evanescent, and the perishable. Help nature and work on with her, and nature will regard thee as one of her creators and make obeisance. And she will open wide before thee the portals of her secret chambers, lay bare before thy gaze the treasures hidden in the very depths of her pure virgin bosom. Unsullied by the hand of matter, she shows her treasures only to the eye of spirit, the eye which never closes, the eye for which there is no veil in all her kingdoms. And now the talk.
Thank you. The talk is called The Occult Power of Gratitude. Most of us in the United States have just celebrated Thanksgiving, and this is the season for giving thanks, for reflection, and for harvesting what we have sown throughout the year. It feels fitting, therefore, to reflect on the deeper meaning of gratitude, not merely as a seasonal sentiment, but as a spiritual force that can shape our inner and outer lives. This talk will focus on gratitude from 5 theosophical perspectives, and there is considerable overlap in many of these concepts. The first perspective is that of gratitude as a mode of consciousness. Most of us think of gratitude as a feeling of thankfulness for receiving a benefit. In Theosophy, however, gratitude belongs to the soul, not the emotions. It's a spiritual recognition of the harmony and justice of the universe, a perception that all things, pleasant or painful, come under the compassionate law of karma. H.P. Blavatsky once wrote that the true student must cultivate, quote, a perfectly unselfish heart and an unwavering determination, unquote. Such a heart naturally flowers into gratitude because it perceives that life itself, with all its lessons, is a gift of the divine. She reminds us that gratitude depends to some degree on motive and inner purity, and these are the true measures of occult progress. From such pure motives comes the fruit that is gratitude. She said, "It is only when the power of the passions is dead altogether, and when they have been crushed and annihilated in the retort of an unflinching will, when not only all the lusts and longings of the flesh are dead, but also the recognition of the personal self is killed out, and the astral has been reduced in consequence to a cipher that the union with the higher self can take place. Then, when the astral reflects only the conquered man, the still living but no more the longing selfish personality, then the brilliant agoides, the divine self, can vibrate in conscious harmony with both poles of the human entity, the man of matter purified and the ever pure spiritual soul, and stand in the presence of the master self, the Christos of the mystic Gnostic, blended, merged into, and one with it forever. Unquote. This is essentially the goal of discipleship, of one seriously embarking on the path of inner wisdom. But what about those of us who are not quite ready for this cataclysmic step? Those of us who still live in the world and can only commit to a lesser service. How can we begin the process of transformation? In the Key to Theosophy, HPB calls gratitude a transforming force when she says, gratitude does more good to the man who feels it than to him for whom it is felt. And this is a deeply metaphysical statement. Gratitude is not simply a reaction, it's a vibration that refines the inner nature, making the personality transparent to the light of the higher self. Every thought and feeling is a living energy, setting up currents in the astral and mental planes. Ingratitude hardens and isolates the lower nature, reinforcing the feeling of separateness. Gratitude, on the other hand, harmonizes the vehicles of consciousness of the higher triad, having an occult effect. Gratitude changes the rate of vibration in the psychic and moral fields and makes them more transparent to the light of the higher self. Gratitude opens the heart to the masters. And when the heart vibrates in harmony with compassion, it becomes a fit instrument for the sixth principle of buddhi, the higher discrimination. Gratitude begins a type of alchemical process whereby the personality is softened and made more magnetic to influences of the higher self. Similarly, we can see this in a karmic context. To feel gratitude is to generate a seed that returns to us. By doing this, we are aligning with harmony, since karma is the law of equilibrium and the restoration of harmony of past actions. So from an occult standpoint, gratitude is not an effect so much as a force. It creates a protective aura around the disciple, a sphere of equilibrium through which discordant forces can seldomly penetrate. It strengthens the Antaskarana bridge between the lower and higher manas, making it such that the light of the higher self can more easily penetrate through the obscuring clouds of the lower nature. The second perspective on gratitude is that of karma, from the point of view of karma. In the Key to Theosophy, HPB, in the section on charity, she links the law of ethical causation with charity and gratitude. And she warns that impersonal, institutional charity often breeds resentment rather than thankfulness because it lacks empathy and contact. She further pointed out that Theosophists, believing in relieving the starvation of the soul as much, if not more, than the emptiness of the stomach, for gratitude does more good to the man who feels it than to him for whom it is felt. Gratitude, in this sense, is restoring balance in human relationships. It corrects the imbalance between the giver and the receiver. An act of genuine compassion awakens gratitude in both the giver and the receiver, healing the illusion of separateness to some degree. She further implies that a society that lacks gratitude creates collective karma. In the Key to Theosophy, she says, every sovereign of those millions contributed by good and would-be charitable people falls like a burning curse instead of a blessing on the poor whom it should relieve. We call this generating national karma. The implication here is that gratitude is the ethical pulse of karma itself. When gratitude disappears, the cycle of giving and receiving becomes poisoned by pride and resentment. When it reappears, the heart of humanity beats in rhythm with karma and divine justice. Gratitude may have the effect of purifying karma because it erases the illusion of mine and thine, of separateness. Can we meet every circumstance, even the difficult ones, with the gratitude and understanding that whatever is happening, that this too is just and for my soul's education? When we meet experience with gratitude, even hard experiences, something remarkable happens. Gratitude has this alchemical effect, and it can change pain into understanding and resistance into strength. In the very moment we can feel thankful, even for a trial, the karmic cycle finishes itself. It does not keep perpetuating itself through resentment or other emotions. So the energy that would have bound us up returns purified to its source. Then the personal self grows, clearer, more open, and as was said, transparent to the light of the higher self, transparent to justice and mercy of the law. This is why in Theosophy we might call gratitude the heart of equilibrium, because it restores a rhythm of giving and receiving on every plane of being. The third perspective of gratitude is that of the recognition of the great ones, the masters, and their invisible help. Robert Crosby's letters in The Friendly Philosopher repeat a striking phrase attributed to the masters. Ingratitude is not one of our vices, they have said. This simple statement encapsulates a profound truth, that the Great Lodge is ever compassionate. The masters do not require our gratitude, they embody it. Their entire existence is one of ceaseless, thankful service to humanity. Mr. Crosby explains that those who strive to tread the path are never left unhelped. Also, that the masters see the light of every pure-hearted aspirant, and to every sincere student, help comes invisibly, not as favors, but as opportunities, as tests, and as impulses that awaken the soul. When we begin to perceive that the universe is responsive, that spiritual help is always present, our natural response to that is reverence and gratitude. And this gratitude can become a steady confidence in the law. In the second letter of The Friendly Philosopher, Mr. Crosby wrote, "No one who strives to tread the path is left unhelped. The great ones see his light, and he is given what is needed for his better development." Thus, gratitude is not dependency, but trust in the compassionate order of life. It strengthens courage, dispels self-pity, and aligns us with those unselfish ones who live to serve. When we silently acknowledge these unseen helpers and the law that governs all, our hearts again become more transparent to the inflow of their aid and assistance. As was mentioned, gratitude is a bridge of consciousness between the lower and higher manas. But this is also true, it strengthens the bridge between the disciple and the master. Occultly speaking, that bridge is not just symbolic, it is a real line of magnetic rapport. The masters have said that the light of souls attracted toward the path of unselfishness is visible to them. Every thought of trust or gratitude toward the lodge strengthens that line. In the inner world, similarity of vibration is proximity. Gratitude therefore draws the student nearer to those who embody gratitude itself. It becomes the subtle speech through which the heart answers the silent blessings of the great ones. The fourth perspective of gratitude is that of it as a cosmic force. We can look at gratitude as a force in the cosmos in several ways. Through spiritual remembrance. The true disciple, awakening the forgotten wisdom, feels deep gratitude for the sacred privilege of being a self-conscious Manasaputra within the divine temple of the universe. The more one advances on this path, the more we remember who we truly are. In this way, gratitude becomes a mode of gnosis, a recognition of one's divine origin and responsibility. In Theosophy, gnosis is not just intellectual knowledge, nor is it a secret teaching. It refers to direct spiritual knowledge, self-authenticating insight into truth, arising from the awakened higher faculties of the soul. The grateful soul radiates beneficent thought and becomes a channel of Buddhic energy. We can also look at gratitude as a force in the cosmos through devotion. The constant outflow of gratitude for the life and message and presence of the masters can spur one along the path. It has been said that gratitude, reverence, and devotion are the triple fuel of perseverance. They keep the disciple steady through the dark nights of doubt. Devotion, gratitude, and perseverance are some of the keys needed to unlock the divine virtues on the paramita path. And we can look at gratitude as a force in the cosmos through service. Mature individuals who have deeply thought about the enormous debt of gratitude they owe toward higher beings, like the Mahatmas, seek to pass on to others what they have received as a free gift themselves. And here, again, gratitude is a dynamic energy, the impulse to give, to teach, to illumine others as we have been illumined. And we can look at gratitude as a force in the cosmos through rhythm, through periodicity. We know everything in the cosmos proceeds in cycles, and even a minute cycle, such as the rhythm of our breath, can express gratitude. Pausing with quiet gratitude periodically and rhythmically, one can move towards a mirroring of the universe in the manner of the great breath. In other words, every conscious breath becomes an act of thanksgiving to the Logos, mirroring the cosmic rhythm of creation, preservation, destruction, or Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. The inbreathing, pause, outbreathing becomes an important cycle for the individual who's attempting to sync up with this same cosmic rhythm. Together, these interpretations show gratitude as a cosmic principle, not just like a private emotion. Together, they reveal that gratitude can link the microcosm and the macrocosm. And to breathe with quiet gratitude is literally to attune human life to the outbreathing and inbreathing of the Logos itself. Gratitude is thus a component of cosmic yoga, a conscious participation in the perpetual offering of life to life. In this way, gratitude is Buddhic harmony and motion. It unites knowing, loving, and doing, and it reflects the initiatory triad of the heart doctrine. Perception, which is buddhi, compassion, which is karuna, and action, which is dharma. The fifth and last perspective is that of gratitude in daily practice. Theosophy insists that every philosophical principle can find a practical expression in one's life. Gratitude, therefore, must be lived, not merely felt on an occasion. And here are some practical ways the Theosophical student can express gratitude. By service, by serving selflessly, one returns to the world a portion of what one has received from the great ones. By trusting karma, even in adversity, the student, the chela, can say, this too is just, this too is help. Another practical way is through remembrance. A quiet daily recollection of the masters, their selflessness, and of humanity who needs help awakens inner peace. By cheerfulness, both Mr. Judge and Mr. Crosby urge the cultivation of cheerfulness, which opens the heart to gratitude and can help with magnetically aligning one's principles. So even in daily practice, gratitude can have this occult alchemical effect in operation. A grateful thought instantly changes the quality of the surrounding atmosphere. It's like a silent benediction radiating outwards. We can imagine currents of beneficent thoughts circling the globe or circling ourselves. Each act of gratitude adds strength to those invisible currents. And it is by such simple means that the disciple helps to steady his own psychic principles and thereby also affect the psychic climate around that of the community, the nation, the world. A verse from the Voice of the Silence reflects this spirit. Let thy soul lend its ear to every cry of pain, like as the lotus bears its heart to drink the morning sun. Let not the fierce sun dry one tear of pain before thou itself hast wiped it from the sufferer's eye. But let each burning human tear drop on thy heart and there remain, nor ever brush it off until the pain that caused it is removed. When this spirit is lived, gratitude ceases to be an act, and it can become like a steady state of being. So to summarize, gratitude in the Theosophical sense is the serene recognition of our inseparable unity with all beings and with the ever compassionate law of karma. Gratitude is the natural radiance of the soul that knows it lives by the light of others and seeks only to pass that light on. Gratitude bridges the doctrine of the I and the heart, intellectual knowledge and spiritual realization. In the words of Robert Crosby, grow as the flowers grow, from within outwards. So may our gratitude flower quietly, opening the heart to compassion and the mind to wisdom, until in the fullness of time it becomes indistinguishable from love itself. To sum up its hidden power, gratitude is magnetic, harmonizing the astral currents. It is illuminating, opening the bridge to the higher self, and it is transmuting, turning karma into wisdom. And it is creative, the tuning of the human being to the rhythm of the logos. When these modes of gratitude operate together in daily life, gratitude ceases to be simply a virtue, and it becomes the law of one's being, like the steady music of the soul in harmony with the universe. And that concludes the talk, and we'll open it up for questions, comments, thoughts.
One of the thoughts I had while you were giving the talk, Kathy, is that in talking about this physical plane where we live and act and think, it's that having abundance of things, material things, creates a sense of ingratitude, because abundance it's often tied to entitlement. And as you well said, also, uh, since there is a national karma, also there is a national. You said something like that, like you're tied to the gratitude of the country or something on those terms. Um, but what I've observed is that the people who have less in terms of the material life are often more grateful of the few things that they have. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
That's true. I have observed that as well. I think many people have observed that. And that kind of goes back to what Madame Blavatsky said in the key on the key to Theosophy about charity, that it often there's this disconnect between charity and gratitude. It does seem common that a lot of folks that obtain things easily don't appreciate them, and don't appreciate how much those without them suffer. It would seem that as a nation we should reevaluate our gratitude and what we have. I think it has to start at the individual level, and then radiate outwards, because I think it would be very difficult to try to prescribe something, although a really effective leader could make a meaningful message to folks. Unfortunately, I think through the law of karma, it's just going to end up being one of those fluctuations where there's a period where people have to go without before they realize what they had, unfortunately. But if we can ourselves practice gratitude, it does help restore balance in human relationships. Even if we're just gratitude, even if we have gratitude for what we have and that our neighbors are fortunate as well. Everything that this student read is that gratitude does help heal the illusion of separateness to some degree. It doesn't completely eliminate it. There's more things that have to happen, but it is a good start at least. And it strengthens the Antaskarana bridge to the higher principles. And the more we're open to the light of the higher, the more that light can guide us, so to speak. But HPB did say a society that lacks gratitude creates collective karma. So that, unfortunately, and she's also said that the poor will. It's like a really intractable problem. I think Jesus said the poor will always be among us, and is perhaps because that experience is necessary for the development of the soul. Everybody goes through that, at some point to some degree, perhaps because we have to experience all places and types of existence before we've, gotten to the end of the journey. I don't know. Those are just some thoughts I had. I don't know if that completely addresses it, but feel free to.
Yes, it does, Kathy. Thank you. I was also thinking that since there is a connection between gratitude and charity and compassion, um, how do we know when it's too much in order not to interfere with another person's karma when it comes to being grateful or helping others. Because the interference of karma, aren't we putting an obstacle to development? How will we know when it's
Yeah, that's a
our
good
intervention is too much?
These are really good questions, Carolina.
Mhm.
It is difficult to know when it's too much. But first of all, we have to proceed on motive. You know, our actions based on motive, that we're trying to help or do something nice for somebody, not for us, purely, truly for the other. So, you know, examining one's motive and really taking a good look at it in the light and examining it is a good starting point. Depending on what it is, it might be possible to check in with the person, but I know a lot of times it may not.
The motives are all from I'm speaking on my own experience. My motives are pure, but I will not know when it's too much. So
Yeah.
that's an open-ended question, and without an answer, it requires a lot of reflection on my part.
Yeah, you don't want to create a dependency or for the person to feel like they owe you. It's really a delicate line. It's really harder than it looks. It's one of the fine lines to walk in life that are really difficult to do.
It's also probably why you can't have just a blanket policy that guides our behavior, right, towards others. Some people want you to do certain things, and other people don't want you to, and they want to have that independence. And some people say they're independent or want to be independent, but they really can't be, and they do need help. So then you have to wait till they ask, so that they, you know, it is. I think it's if ever there were something that should be handled on a case by case basis, it's probably that gratitude and how we interact with others, because you don't want to take away people's agency, right? I mean, the Gita says the duty of another is full of danger. So there are, it's a great question, and it really probably does come down to discrimination, you know, being able to discriminate, and you know, maybe bringing it down to a more practical level, communication, right? Asking, waiting to be asked. Don't just jump in and rescue someone, you know. But those are some basic things that come to my mind.
Thanks.
Yeah, it does. I was reflecting on that part in the key about charity, because you know, she specifically says we call this generating national karma, and how we like care for the poorest among us, and so it's a really important topic. I think it makes sense to have programs that the poor can access. There's just always a lot of political whatever about helping the poorest among us, and yeah, in our own personal lives we know those who are less fortunate, and yeah, maybe there's you know, a gift, everything should be the time, the place, all those things should be considered, like Josh said, on a case by case basis. But I don't know, I thought it was interesting the part I studied where it came out that gratitude, you know, genuine gratitude can sort of help erase the separateness, the illusion of separateness of mine and thine. And in the spirit of that, that might be a good thing to hold in mind, that we're not really separate, and we want to sort of break down those illusions of separateness.
Mhm.
Another aspect of this that crossed my mind as I was listening to you speak is gratitude, among so many other things. Like you said, it can be an emotion, but it can also be like a cosmic principle. I mean, can be experienced in a lot of different ways. But it tends to be, unlike many things, it tends to be always now. It's a very present feeling. We don't usually say, well, I was grateful for that, but I'm not anymore. Or I'll be grateful for that in the future. Right? We almost never speak in those terms. I mean, you could construct something like that with the language, but it doesn't resonate really with our experience, because we experience gratitude as how I feel right now. I just find that interesting. Almost any other emotion, you could say, oh, I was afraid, but now I'm not, or you know, I hope to love someone in the future, or whatever it might be. Like there can be a kind of past and present. And of course, we only experience some emotions in the present, but gratitude on its own seems to have this sort of now quality to it that I don't know. It seems to indicate something about its power. You know.
Yeah, well, in the daily life idea, you know, recollecting the masters, or taking time, making a daily practice. You could plan to be grateful, set aside time to, you know, like they have these gratitude journals. It's like a popular thing.
Yeah.
So maybe over time we could change that perception of it just being in the here and now.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that speaks to its universality. I mean, everything, the only reality we have, the only functional reality we have is now. And I think gratitude resonates with that better than a lot of other ideas.
Yeah, it's hard to be grateful. You know, if we practice it more often, we can be grateful. Like it said, like I was, you know, the research I found said, like, even for a trial, you know, because it, I guess, relieves some karma, makes us stronger. If we look at it in a more holistic gratitude, in a more holistic way, rather than, you know, appreciation for a gift or something, seeing, you know, being grateful to breathe in rhythm with the cosmos, those types of things, we can like really expand the concept of gratitude and when we experience it, and the now, how we experience it.
Speaking of in the practical sense of gratitude, I've always found that the comparison of things in order to awaken in us the gratitude feeling, it's totally wrong. Haven't we heard, perhaps you as well, that, oh, there are children in Africa who are starving and you must eat. You have to be grateful for this dish that's in front of you. That comparison is horrible. I think it's horrible to do to a child, to compare yourself in terms of having and others not having. How can we develop that sense of gratitude without comparison?
Without comparison.
Mm.
Um,
I think it's not the only way. I don't have the answer. That's why I'm putting it to the platform in case you have some ideas. I know there's this other cosmic force about gratitude, but I also am very interested in the practical part of gratitude,
mhm.
gratefulness.
Well, in the talk, what I found was like sorry, I'm not speaking clearly. Gratitude and daily practices by like a couple of methods. One was like through service, being you know, taking the opportunity to be selfless and to do some type of service. By it said by trusting karma. So even in adversity, you know, appreciating where one has been brought to a realization or a difficulty that shows you have stamina, you have courage, you have resilience, you have all these qualities. by cheerfulness, that was another one, because that opens us up to gratitude, if we're more, cheerful and cheerfully forthright. There's a number of ways you could implement that, but it says that opens the heart to gratitude and helps align one's principles, and of course the daily recollection, taking some time to be grateful for what one has, and for the message of Theosophy. And it said, I guess it kind of goes to like concentration and meditation. Like when you do that, it changes the vibration. And that was interesting to me, that similarity of vibration is proximity in terms of those higher beings. And every act of gratitude adds strength to the invisible currents. So I guess those are ways you could do it without making a comparison. But I think, forcing a comparison, especially on a child, doesn't make a lot of sense to them in their worldview. But if you want to show somebody else, I think seeing how others live, and just in a matter-of-fact way without making a comparison, inevitably people make comparisons. So just being more open to learning about others and how they live could also be a way to do that. Appreciating what others, their traditions, their lifestyle, their, like, I don't know, I always think there are still some Bedouins that are nomadic in the deserts, like, kind of blows your mind how they live. And they, of course, don't want to lose their way of life. They're grateful for so many things that we would be like, not, we would think maybe that wasn't, good enough. Hang on just one moment.
But it's also like you said, Carolina, about just riffing off of what Kathy just said, like the Bedouin, like the people who have the least seem to be the most grateful for what they have. The people who have the most often feel entitled and don't have that same sense of gratitude. That is an interesting kind of inversion of culture somehow in our day lives.
True. We tend to accumulate. I can say
Accumulate.
to get to collect things.
Yeah.
Thinking that makes us happy.
Yeah. Well, and also just reflecting on your question about like what the value of comparison is. I agree, as Kathy did, that it's not probably that productive for children, because they don't really have that capacity to understand exactly what that might mean to be starving in another country and all that. I think the comparison might be helpful sometimes for adults who do have a broader perspective and a little bit more of an intellectual understanding of the thing. I think in the Christian tradition, there's there, but for the grace of God go I. Just like understanding that, because to translate that theosophically, it's saying I have fortunate karma that I don't have to endure that suffering that they're suffering, right? That they're having to endure. But then it gets back to this idea that suffering, we should be grateful for our suffering, because it's what helps us to meet and mitigate our karma and to balance our karmic debt. We have to be grateful to our enemies for bringing that karma upon us. We have to be grateful to them for agreeing before they incarnated to be the agent of that karma, to be willing to take on the role of the bad guy in that situation. It gets very complex when you start to think about, we are all one. Your karma is my karma is her karma, and there is no separation
Yeah,
really
separation is an illusion. Mhm.
of reality. Separation only exists in the realm of illusion. So in that sense, we are, like Shakespeare said, all the world's a stage, right? We're all just sort of playing out these circumstances based on our the needs of the individual personality, you know, the individuality that's reincarnating from ego to, you know, from life to life. The reincarnating ego has a certain need for this karma, and every circumstance that comes up is in some way meeting our karma, and we should be grateful for that, whether it's a positive thing or a negative thing. With the food situation, especially with kids, I think a more positive approach is, and not just with kids, but with adults too, is not to compare it to those who have nothing, but to think about how you got the food. This is a nice sort of exercise. You think, okay, well, you know, I'm grateful to my mom for making me this food, right, when you're a kid. But where did mom get it, right? She got it out of a can, you know, and you know, if it's a can of tomato soup, right, the can itself is made of, you know, metal that was mined, you know, in some other country. So there's a whole crew of people who are out there, you know, manufacturing cans. The tomatoes were grown in fields that were picked by human hands or by a machine driven by a person. And that machine, it's got 10,000 parts, and every one of those parts was conceived of and manufactured by a human being, you know, in a factory that was constructed by construction workers who themselves were eating tomato soup. You know, it's like there's just this constant flow of opportunities to be grateful, right? If you stop to think about everyone who went into your tomato soup, you would literally never eat it. You know, it's just, it goes on forever. It eventually extends to, like, by, you know, 6 degrees of separation. Literally every single human being on earth contributed in some way to that food. And as an exercise in gratitude and compassion, just to think about the first few layers. You know, I'm grateful to, you know, the you know, natural gas in the stove that heated the food, or the electricity in the microwave that heated the food, and the bowls and the factory.
It's like dependent origination.
yeah, exactly.
Wow. Yeah, that's a nice practice for adults as well. Yeah. That's actually what Zen would say, the Zen philosophy, to think of all the hands that have put the dish in front of you.
Yeah.
To be grateful for them.
That seems more meaningful than think of those people who don't have what you have.
Don't have, yeah.
Yeah, it's like thinking of a negative. It's really hard to do.
Right.
True.
We ourselves, I mean, being aware of the Mahatmas and stuff, we're supposed to, like, it's basically said that everybody's had unseen help. So, like, even when you're going through a difficult time, you might, you know, have a positive thought or feel some relief. That could be due to the presence of, you know, the beneficent ideation of more advanced beings. So even though we can't see what has been given, we're been made aware that we are helped. So we can look for ways that we've been helped, and that might open up how we could be helpful to others. Yeah.
I have a couple of other quick thoughts, if I may, before we close.
Sure.
One is that I learned fairly recently this way of thinking of it, and it's if we're going through something, sometimes we can say to ourselves, it's not that I've got to do it, it's that I get to do it, right? Just that reframing that I don't have to, I get to. Like, it's an opportunity to meet that karma, or to, relieve that suffering, whatever it might be for somebody else, whatever challenge it is, there's probably a positive side to it, and the experience of going through it is going to make us better in some way. But then the other thought that comes to mind is something I learned decades ago, from a friend of a friend. He was a lawyer, but did most of his work pro bono. He lived very, very frugally, and did almost all of his work for the poor. And I said something in my naivete, I guess, along the lines of, karmically, there's some benefit to being poor. Like you meet that negative karma. It can be good to be poor. And he said, don't romanticize suffering. Like, they don't know that they're going to get to eat that day, so they can't think about karma or other people. It's like, he's like, don't romanticize suffering. It's easy for us to say, oh, we should be grateful for our suffering, or it's not that we have to, it's that we get to. That, like, those are ways that we can, from our particular position, our particular, sort of lifestyle of abundance that we have here, we can make those kinds of statements, and they are useful. But not to forget that, for many others, they can't get to that point. They're not, it's like we couldn't get to that point either without food in our bellies. So it's just, that was a really, eye-opening experience for him to share that, that perspective with me. So I thought I would share.
Yeah, thank you. So I guess if there are no more comments or questions, we'll leave it there. And then just a reminder, next week is the first Sunday of the month. So there is going to be a talk on Theosophical symbolism from Manassas. And then we'll follow it with The Way of the Bodhisattva by Shantideva. Thank you so much for coming today and contributing your thoughts and questions. It's really appreciated, and hope you have a great week.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you for giving the talk.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.